buddy.
Hello, how are
That's
you?
all I got. That's the biggest intro I've got for you right now. Just me and
Hey,
you.
buddy. Can I
Just
tell
me
you,
and you.
I'm all out of sorts right now because my wife took a girls trip with her
Wow.
friends and they like swung for the fences. So instead of like a weekend in Vegas, it's like 3 weeks in Southeast Asia.
Wow.
So like not only is she like not here, like I'm doing bachelor life for like a significant amount
You're
of time, three
untethered.
weeks, like not, I'm untethered,
You're Bruce
but like it,
McCandlessing right now.
but she's 13 hours ahead of me. So like I wake up and
Oh,
I
you don't
go,
even
good
talk to
night.
each
And
other.
then, so like,
Wow.
I'm just like, I like the world is different. I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know what time it is. I
Wow.
sometimes like catch myself like walking around the house. Like, am I supposed to be doing something right now? Like, I can't remember. And then like,
How many Lego sets
it's
have you purchased for this time?
not enough Lego sets.
Yeah.
But man, I've done a lot of yard work because I just get bored and I just go dig up a bush or something. Man, it's been something. So.
3 weeks on opposite sides of Earth is like you either need to rearrange the entire house by the time she comes back or go full Planet of the Apes. Like,
I come back and I'll just be like lying here in a pile of my
Yeah.
dirty laundry. You'll be like,
Do you have any neighbors that have like dogs and cats that you could watch for a day? Whatever day she's coming home. Just be like, oh, I got a couple of new cats for you.
a couple of new animals here. I got this new iguana.
Just load the house, a whole fish tank. Yeah.
Yeah.
The world is at your fingertips.
Yeah. So.
Well,
Yeah, it's
we're
been
here for a
interesting.
little palate cleanser.
Palate cleanser. Yeah, we've talked a lot about the election, so we thought, what if we didn't
That's
for like
what
1
we
week?
Because there's no space
We wanna
news
go-
yet. It's all conjecture.
No.
There's nothing, no details. There's an
Exactly,
Eric Berger
exactly.
tweet here and there, but yeah.
we
Hilarious
want to go a
feedback
whole
to the Eric
episode.
Berger episode, by the way. Can I make a comment that when we
Yeah.
have like Peter Beck on, we kind of get outside of our usual little web and we end up with day
Yeah.
traders in this chat or something. I don't know if it was the Berger-ness of it all, the Ars Technica people, or the MAGA people online. Like we captured some other section of the internet.
Yeah, we escaped the bubble. Yeah.
Best one was a tweet recently that just said, "Never let Berger near a newspaper or magazine again." I was like, "Yeah, no problem. Like we're not doing the paper media at any point here." That was good.
Yeah.
So we're putting that
Someone
behind
called
us.
us
What are we doing
clowns. That
today?
was fun too. Yeah. Well, we should do drinks first. That's what we're doing first.
Yep.
So, what do you got for us? What do you got?
Prima pills, just a regular victory, just a pilsner.
What does Prima pills mean?
Prima?
What is
Like probably like kind of spring,
Like
primavera,
first?
maybe.
Ah,
Probably.
claro. Okay, all right. Primavera.
I think it just sounds
Nice.
cool, mostly, because you can buy this all times of the year, so it's not seasonal by any means.
So I get that because I've been making meads and I've been naming the batches after planets so far, and so like it gets to a point where I just like I pick a planet and then I try and find an adjective that's alliterative with it, and that's what I do. So
Can you tell us some?
well, I had Luna Llena was the second one I made, so that's got a lot of L's in it.
Got it.
They're all in Spanish too, just because I think it's
Okay.
fun. Marte Mojado is the one coming up. That's Wet
I like
Mars.
that.
So yeah, but they're gonna get dumb. It's
Warm and
how
wet?
it's gonna be. So.
Or
yeah,
what
warm
is
and
it?
wet.
Warm
Yeah,
and wet,
exactly.
or
Cold and icy. Yeah.
cold and icy. Yeah. All right. Well, are you drinking that today? Is that what you got?
No, not today. Nothing's ready yet, Anthony.
Okay.
The mead.
All right. I was like, why
I
haven't
know
you
I've
had
been-
these yet?
I know I've been making mead for like 8 months now, and it's weird that I have a podcast where I drink alcohol and I have not had any. It's
Maybe they all
coming
sucked. I
because
don't know.
yes, they have. The first 2 batches, they haven't been drinkable yet. I've not done them right, and there's a chance that aging them will mellow them out and they'll be okay like in a year. So those ones we're gonna wait. Batch 3 is a maybe. It's like racking right now. It's close to bottling. That's the Mars one. Batch 4, I'm very hopeful because I just racked it and it was drinkable right away. Like it wasn't like the best mead I've ever had, but like it tasted like mead and it was sweet and good. And it wasn't like So that's like, I'm really hoping that one is the one. And so I'm racking that. I got two batches. There's one that's got cinnamon and vanilla in it. It's gonna be good. So anyway,
That sounds
but
like the
today
one that
I
you're
don't
gonna
have that
drink
today.
for the Off-Nominees. That sounds like
That's kind of what I'm hoping.
holiday party one.
That might work out. That might work out time wise. So no, today I have a cocktail. This is the one that doesn't look good but is good. This is kind of like this pea color, but
Sure is.
this is Ishtabentun, which is that local Mayan honey liqueur with star anise in it. So it's like black licorice and honey, and then you put a little rum and lime juice in it. Oh, it's perfect, man. My favorite.
Wow. Is that your hurricane drink? You're about to get a little schwacked, I think.
Now I'll just get a little rain.
Guess where that hurricane's gonna hook? Directly back to West Florida every time. It's crazy. All right,
this one looks like it's gonna like fizzle out, so we'll see.
We'll see if the fizzler forecast is correct there. I don't remember when we solicited prompts for discussion. Do you remember when this was?
It was a while ago. So we were doing that show, the Newlyweds show that we did together.
That's right.
Right.
Yes,
we had we sent out that Google Doc and there was all the questions in there, and we picked out the ones that were good for newlyweds. And there were a bunch of other questions that like didn't quite fit the game show format correctly, but were still good. So we just like threw them in a document, and then we go and harvest it when we don't have a show. So
we sat on it for years, and then we said we should do something unrelated to the election, and all we had was, let's do some questions that are fun and completely unrelated.
Pull some questions, but yeah. So did a little bit of prep on these so that we have, some content, but it should be silly and fun, and I hope it's useful. But
question in the chat: when's Family Feud? We still have not found a Family Feud. Wow, that's huge! I hit this button, and that is absolutely enormous. Thank you, Andrew. Still have not really found a dungeon master for Family Feud who can independently organize. Who, first of all, has the patience to go through all of your responses, independently organize them into appropriate categories.
It turns out we need a third employee for this.
Yeah, we need our intern quit a couple years ago, and we haven't gotten.
We need Rachel to do it.
So one day, Steve Harvey. We'll wait for his retirement. Yes. All right. So, do you want to go in a particular order? You had one you were hot about right before this in the pre-show.
Just because it was related. Finale? Well, we were kind of talking about a tangentially related topic in the pre-show, which was, I don't know, that was pretty serious stuff. Maybe we want to save that to the end. I don't know how you want to lead into this.
Well, the biggest one that we had was if we were going to create a high-budget feature film about any historical space event, what would it be? And by create, I mean hire professional filmmakers to make it for you. You don't have to learn to do that yourselves. That's solid, because that would be a lift. So high budget feature film. I assume this is like kind of dramatized a little bit, is how I took it. Or are you doing documentary? What's your?
So I have a couple ideas. One of them is funny and one of them is serious. The funny one, I think I've talked about. There's a chance we've done this question because I started writing this out and I was like, I feel like this idea was already up here and I don't know why it's up here. So, but I think that we need to make an Apollo 12 movie. I think that is like unmined gold because all the attention goes to Apollo 11 and Apollo 13, rightfully, because they're a big deal. But Apollo 12 is like a great opportunity for you could make it a comedy almost. Like you could make it something that was like really lighthearted and fun and weird because like there's so much weird shit happened on that mission. Like you had the lightning and the SE Ox, all the camera shenanigans. There was like pornography in this mission. Like it was wild how much weird shit happened in this mission. And I think it would be really funny if we like did that one as a thing.
That's our patron saint mission. That's the Off-Nominal mission of all time. Yeah.
Nobody talks about it.
So what you should
explain
the camera one.
Well, the camera one is like a series of jokes. This is why it's so funny, right? Because there's like the joke is Alan Bean sucks at cameras. Like that's the whole joke, right? So okay, what there was the first one was he like stepped out of the lander onto the surface and had the whatever, the Hasselblad or whatever, and like immediately pointed at the sun and ruined it. Like that camera just died. Like immediately. Like it was game
No
over
pictures
within
taken.
like
That
a
was it.
minute on the surface. Like screwed the camera up. Just, done. And he was like, wow, I guess maybe I shouldn't have been in charge of cameras. But then there was like so that was the pinpoint landing, right? They landed next to Surveyor 3 to
Right.
demonstrate like we can pick a spot and get there. And so they went to this old robotic lander to go and whatever. And he had this idea for a gag, right? He's like, I'm going to bring this remote camera shutter for the camera that no one knows I have. And then I'm going to take a picture of me and Pete Conrad on the surface together. And it's going to confuse everybody because they're going to be like, who took the picture? And it's going to be the best joke ever. that was his plan, right? This is 1960. Apparently that's a really, this is I guess, no, it's 70s, right? No, this is 69 still.
69.
This is
Yeah, late
69.
69.
So I guess, a remote camera shutter was just inconceivable technology, even though they could get to the moon. But anyway, so he lost the shutter, which was the big thing. He like apparently threw it out with the trash at one day and just like lost it. So he never got to do his gag, which was funny.
Still great pictures though. Is this working? I got some weird.
Yeah,
message.
I can see that.
This works? Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So only one
Cool
astronaut
pictures.
in the picture next to Surveyor.
Only one astronaut. Still great though. I always loved the way that the limb is kind of up on the hill, and it has this very fantastic framing to it. I always love that.
Yeah.
Love that moment.
Yeah. And then the third camera thing was on the way home. The capsule re-enters, splashes down into the water, and they had the camera like stowed up in like some sort of like netting or compartment, and it came out and smoked Alan Bean like in the head, like real hard. Like he had to get stitches. Like it was like a non-trivial injury from getting smoked in the head by the camera. So I thought that was funny. And then pornography.
And this is why he's a painter now.
This is why he paints now. He's like, I'm done. I'm done with space and cameras. Yeah. Yeah, that's really funny.
That would be a great one because it's hijinks on the moon. I mean, it's
hijinks on the moon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't know the pornography story, so the Apollo astronauts had like a little book on their arm. It was like literally like instructions for the mission, like your timeline, like do this as you're doing your surface EVAs. And some Air Force guys like got into the supplies and they slotted in all these like nudes of girls into the pages. And so they're like on the moon doing a very serious national EVA, and they're turning the page and there's just like naked girls on there, and they had to like, got their excitement for the EVA. But
that's some like post-war,
right.
nonsense. I love it.
And it's just so funny because you step back and you're like, you think about the seriousness of Apollo 11 and Apollo 13, and you're like, Apollo 12 is right in the middle of that, and it's just that's a thing that happened, and we haven't had a movie
in the modern era. That would be ridiculed as like the reason that Apollo 13 happened was like we got so soft on Apollo 12 and we took it so easy that, and maybe that's true. Maybe that's exactly
this is what happens when you let Elon Musk run the moon landing.
Oh man, too real. Yeah. But yeah, that's great. That's what happens when no one's paying attention to you, I guess, in the fall of 1969, and you gotten the one out of the way, and it's just like, all right, now it's our time. Our time to shine. All right, do you want to do your serious one?
Sure. Yeah. So my serious one is okay. So the Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars, right? This is like 1980s program, Reagan, space weapons, big idea to counteract the Soviets. So it was a pretty frantic response in the Soviet Union to that. Like they were kind of scared about that was coming. And so like in the mid 80s, they had all this shit cooking for how to deal with it. What are we going to do about Star Wars? What are we going to do about Reagan space lasers coming to get us? Right. And so I would love to see like kind of behind the scenes storytelling of what was going on inside not just the Soviet space program, but the Soviet military, and kind of like a little lower. Stay away from Gorbachev. Like I don't want to be up in that level. I want to get down into the trenches. A story down in there with the designers in there, because they were cooking up ideas, and I think the movie kind of like culminates in the Energia launch of Polyus, right, which is like 1987. That's so brand new, huge rocket. There's a story there that we're all gonna love, like this enormous monstrosity of a rocket, and then this freaking nuclear space laser that is a real thing that they built and flew to space. Like, it didn't work, but
well,
that's
they
the
did
thing.
fly
Like,
it to space and then immediately back.
they flew to space, and it was like, no, thank you, and it turned around and literally and came
Immediately
home.
deorbited.
So
Both of yours are ending in Off-Nominees, which I love. Like that's,
yeah, exactly. It's an off nominee, but I think that's probably a pretty wild story if you get down to I don't know how much of it is declassified, but there's enough there's a great story of it.
you're on the right track, because it's hard to find space events that have not already been given the treatment, that don't have an ultimate crescendo. That was the tough part about this, right? Like, I would watch any movie about any of the Mars missions or the Cassini mission. Cassini might be a good one, of coming together and flying it, and some of the crazy maneuvers that they were doing around. I mean, Jupiter and Saturn missions are fun because you've got so much activity in terms of moons and rings and all that to deal with. Are you getting warp drived? What's happening? Your whole screen was lighting up like you were getting neuralized from Men in Black. All right, so Jake, guess what movie I would make?
Oh, I'm blanking. I don't know.
Come on, baby. Skylab.
Skylab, yes.
Yes.
In
in the same vein of your things, right? Hijinks. Do you know how screwed up the original Skylab mission was? It was unbelievably screwed up. Everything went wrong with obviously Skylab, the launch, totally screwed up.
Was that the mutiny too? Which one was
that was later. I think this first mission was, so they launched Skylab. They were supposed to launch the next day. The humans were going to go up the next day. Ended up waiting a week and a half. To figure out what happened. The thing
came
Skylab.
off on the way up. So
everything, micrometeorite shield ripped off. The solar rays all janked up.
Got real hot.
They lost all thermal control.
Yeah.
And they thought once it was that hot, it would be like all of the outgassing would be in the cabin, would be creating like toxic air and all this kind of stuff. So they purged the air within Skylab multiple times before the crew showed up. But the rescue mission to repair Hubble Hubble. I've just read the chat about saving Hubble, which is another good one that we will get to. The rescue mission to save Skylab. You might remember, they probably docked and they fixed some stuff. Do you know about this EVA that they had to do? This is most
this
ridiculous
the one?
EVA.
I know that we're talking about the sun shield. Is that what we're going to get into here?
Like and the solar array.
The makeshift sun shield to keep it cool down. That's the one. Did they have to like climb on the outside and like push it through a hole into the space station, or maybe the other way around?
The thing was tangled up, right? In the array, the solar array was jammed closed. The one that got screwed up, right? So they were going to try to free the solar array first, but the best way to do that was not to just like dock and then go outside for a typical EVA. They flew the Apollo spacecraft next to where they needed to work, and then Paul Weitz stood up out of the hatch, and they held onto his ankles out of the Apollo hatch as he used a 10-foot pole with a hook to try to like yank this solar array open. Somehow not preparing for the fact that they were going to be yanking the space station towards them. They were like, oh my gosh, we're about to crash into the space station.
They forgot about Newton's laws. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and then he, through the course of this, used up like the vast majority of the propellant for attitude control that Skylab was working with at the time.
This is coming back to me now. Yeah.
I just love the fact though that the best plan was fly next to where you need to work, hold this person's ankles as they try to yank on the solar array. Yeah, and then obviously deploying the sunshade was a total jury-rigged, like, I hope this works, and then they unfurl basically a parasail, and that ends up bringing the temperatures down into like a reasonable level. But just the again, let's compare this to modern day, right? If this were to happen, how long do you think it would take before NASA would launch that first crew? It wouldn't be what turned out to be 11 days later. Skylab launched.
That would
Right?
be
It was
18
like May
months.
14th, I think May 25th or something. Let me fact check. These
Yeah,
dates.
It was fast.
It's really fast.
Yeah. Huh.
Uh,
Yeah, you're right.
Let me get the
Skylab would be a
list.
great movie. That'd be a great movie.
Where's the list
Skylab
of
would be a
Skylab
great
launches?
TV series, not a movie though.
It would be a great TV series, yes. Because then you have some normal, like, look at this guy showering in space for the first time in this way. And
Yeah.
remember the weird little shower thing that they would pull up around them, like the little curtain?
Yeah. And maybe like a limited series, like sort of like 12 episodes kind of thing.
6 or 8
Which-
would do it.
Which are, by the way, like when we say that this is a modern day construction calling this a TV series. It's when you do a 6-episode miniseries, it's 6 movies is what you're making. Like, let's be serious. Like that's what they
6
are. Right?
sub 1 hour movies. So yeah, it was May 14th, uncrewed launch. And then they were supposed to launch May 15th, but they didn't launch until May 25th. But the fact, and again, Pete Conrad is starring in all of our movies, by the way.
Yeah.
So, go Birds.
we love Pete Conrad. So
It's my local moonwalker. But again, if this happened today, if NASA launched a space station, imagine one of these commercial LEO stations launches. Everything goes wrong with the launch. It might not even work as a space station. Do you think the delay would be 10 days to develop procedures? That's what's wild, is that it was like, well, we need a little more time to prepare. I think we could do it in 10 days. And then go up with all these plans of like, all right, we're going to EVA this way, flying next to the space station. Number one, that would never happen. Let's unfurl this weird parachute-looking thing over top and hope that works. All right, now let's make sure that we've got enough solar power from the one janky array that's left on the thing before we actually dock with the spacecraft. They had to actually dock the first time. They had to disassemble part of the docking node. Like the original docking adapter did not. It was not docking.
Janky as hell.
They had to like disassemble and tweak some of the hardware to actually dock, and had to do it with their pressure suits on because they didn't know what they were getting into the first time.
Wow.
So it's a lot. It's a lot. And then obviously great crescendo with the deorbit of Skylab and ending up in Australia.
And all the angry Aussies. Yeah. I
could see it. Even, that weird radio host who like put out the call for like, if you get hit with a piece of Skylab, I will, send you $10 million or whatever. I forget what the story. That's approximately correct. But you could have like some, the B plot is like what's going on in the ground around the world, tracking Skylab, and that guy in Australia is doing his whole thing.
No.
So that's your Australia guy. So,
yeah. The
Pete Conrad,
4-syllable
Alan Bean,
nose.
and older Garriott are gonna star in our movies.
Yeah. Love it. Skylab's the one too where they had didn't they leave the prank for the next crew? They like set up all the dummies in the suits. So like when the next crew arrived at the station and opened the door, there was like fake people like eating dinner at the table. I'm pretty sure that's Skylab as well.
That makes sense.
Lots of shenanigans, man.
I mean, I would not. Again, that was one where you were up there so long that no one was watching. Okay, here I think I found the picture.
Yeah.
This is what you're thinking about.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the exercise bike. Yeah.
That's so good. That is so good.
So funny.
Yeah. Also, Skylab just had such a cool vibe to it inside, because we didn't know how space stations worked yet.
No. It had a trap zone where you could just like be out of reach of all your handholds and be stuck in microgravity.
Yeah. I hope one of your friends
That's how
is
big
going
it
by
was.
soon.
Yeah. Jump at me so that we both get out of this trap zone.
If we want to thematically roll along, Jake, one of the questions was a what if? Is the what if one a good one to roll into here?
Yeah, I think so. So.
What is your favorite alternate space history what if? So this is like a For All Mankind style. What if the Russians landed first? Soviets, I guess.
Yeah.
Mine is Skylab related. Shocker.
Okay.
What if?
Let's do
what
it.
if the shuttle was ready in time? Skylab got boosted. Shuttle was flying there.
That's interesting. Do you have a Skylab Soyuz mission.
Right. Do we add modules to Skylab? Still flying today?
Dust off those other Saturn rockets and send up a couple more Skylabs.
One more
Triple
Skylab, the one that's in the Air and Space Museum.
Yeah. Ooh.
But
I like that.
I
That's
think
a good
just
one.
the shuttle implications are interesting too, because you think about the early manifest of shuttle. They got shuttle was supposed to go to Skylab as most of its early missions. They ended up trying to figure out what else to do with it. They did a bunch of defense satellites and weather satellites and the thing
Commercial
where they captured the
satellites.
2 commercial satellites and brought them down to send them back up later, and Tedra's satellites. I don't know. There's just something interesting about how would this have unfurled, and what would the decision-making process have been? Because we wouldn't have gotten on the space station freedom track really at all at that point. We'd probably be would Hubble have been pulled earlier in the timeline? Couldn't really. There's not much room earlier for that, right? From 81 to 82.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because like you're right in that the early shuttle program was real awkward. It was like very much like we don't really know what this is for, so we're just doing everything with it to see what sticks. That was an original shuttle plan. It's just like this is the only launcher. All launchers are now obsolete. It's shuttle for everything, which was not smart. But that's interesting. Yes, I'm here for multi-module Skylab though. That would have been a beast. That would have been hefty boy.
Hefty boy is correct. Yeah, I don't even know if it would have worked, but
there was a big telescope on Skylab, right? Wasn't there like a big lens thing on the top?
Yep, the solar telescope mount.
Yeah,
it was kind of under the what I guess was that where the engine would have been, or is that or where the LEM would have sat on the Saturn IV-B stage?
I believe
right?
so. Yeah.
The Apollo, what was it called? The Apollo Solar Telescope, something
like that. Yeah.
Apollo telescope mount.
I think it launched like facing up, and then there was like a 90-degree turn it did on. Yeah, to face the other direction. Yeah.
There's the telescope going in. That's how you drive it. There's my boy Paul White's doing stand-up EVAs. There you go. Here's the
bend. Yeah.
Deployment of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy too. That like Skylab, was a solar.
There's that
mission
janky solar
a lot of
thing there. Yeah.
Yeah. The janky everything. Look at
that. What a piece of shit space station.
Listen, it's the space station we had. Okay.
Worse than Salyut 7 that just broke continuously.
I like that as a factoid on if you look up like Skylab, I was trying to look up EVA dates and stuff, and one of the Skylab 2 facts is like this was the first. Let me read how this was written. Furthermore, its crew was the first space station occupants to ever return safely to Earth. The only previous space station occupants, the crew of Soyuz 11.
That's morbid.
Like
that's
Jesus,
so morbid.
What a dumb superlative for this mission. Very odd.
Brutal. That's so bad.
I was the first one to ever do that and survive. It's like, okay.
Soyuz
cool,
11. Oh, man. Jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
That's dark.
What's your what if?
Speaking of dark. All right. Actually, one of the people in the chat kind of guessed it here. So my what if is, I was thinking about For All Mankind, right? Which is like it's the low hanging fruit of space what ifs. Is like what if the Soviets won the space race, right? I wanted to go back further because I think there's a scarier one, which is what if the Nazis didn't lose? So
you're doing Man in the High Castle.
But space. Okay. So think about it. So you have in my scenario, the Nazis like capture like a lot of Europe, right? In my scenario.
In my scenario, the Nazis. It's just a sentence I never thought we'd get to in this show.
Yeah. We're going to get canceled for this show.
Let's go.
It's over. I'm already canceled. Yeah. Okay. So imagine a world where like the Nazis
No,
capture a
start
bunch
it.
of
Start
Europe.
it again. Start again. In my scenario, the Nazis.
In my scenario, in my dream, um, the Nazis capture a bunch of Europe, but it doesn't like cascade into some long dystopian future. Like that was not a stable regime. Like Hitler probably gets stabbed in the back at some point anyway, and then it chills out. So I'm kind of imagining like sort of the same thing that happened with like the Soviets and Stalin, right? Where like Stalin was like a nightmare, and then the every successive leader just got kind of weaker and weaker until the whole thing fell apart, right? So imagine that with the Nazis. So like, you know, the US still around, the UK still around. They don't really take much more than half of France and Italy and a bunch of Eastern Europe, and they've got this big chunky empire, maybe part of Northern Africa, whatever, right? You have this big strong German empire coming out of World War II. So space implications, right? First of all the V2 engineers do not get distributed between the US and the Soviets, right? So you have all this talent stays in Germany, and they got V2 technology, and they keep working on it. So that's like your first kind of what happens, right? Now you have the US needs to like do their own thing. You guys need to basically make Vanguard work, which didn't work very well. You know, but like that's your space program now, is whatever those guys were doing. The Soviets, same thing. They can't steal a bunch of people, and they got to make on their own thing. But what I think what's interesting though is that in a world where the Nazis stick around, like the Cold War probably doesn't happen, right? You and the Soviets might have even stayed kind of friends because you had this like other thing, right? So like our whole world changes because of this, right? Like the whole NATO alliance doesn't really happen if you guys aren't getting the Cold War and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe there's a
we
world
might go
where
back
like
to somewhat isolationist at that point. Right?
Maybe, or maybe you like team up with the Soviets, and like today's ESA space program is like, you know, you can imagine a like Pan American British Soviet kind of like thing, or you know, with some other maybe Western European country. I don't know, like some kind of like, not, you know, it's like the NATO against the Nazis, right? Like that
like
becomes
Nazis
the sort of thing.
what the Russian like has taken. Yeah, I gotcha.
Exactly, right? So you kind of have the same idea of what Soviets became with the Russians, and that kind of rivalry, but it's with the Nazis, and all the talent doesn't get mixed up at the beginning, and there is no space race, probably, maybe there is, I don't know, but like it'd be way different, and like it's just, and not, I don't know, thinking about this, like it's not something I really thought out all the way to the end, but it does kind of like help me.
I'd rather us come in half baked on this kind of shit.
Yeah,
I have some follow-ups if you'd like to further refine this.
All right, let's do it.
In the space realm, what is the Nazis' French Guiana? Because you have sculpted an area that is the worst spot to ever launch to space from. You've carved out like, where can you not launch to space from, and you circled it and said that's what the Nazis took over.
Okay, well, let's see, because the Germans did colonize Africa quite a bit. That's what I'm going for. They had, let's see,
like, were they the Kenya spaceport, like the Andy Weir KSC?
Yeah, so I'm stalling because I'm embarrassed that my African geography is not great, but the Germans colonized Tanzania, and that has an east coast.
Is it? But does it have a long enough downrange? I mean, we are assuming that the Nazis would not worry about dropping rockets on people, which is maybe the worst assumption to make in this scenario.
Tanzania's got a great space coast. It's like almost equatorial, completely east-facing coastline over the Indian Ocean.
And I think you can probably capture the tourists that want to go see the Skywalker homestead. Isn't that in Tanzania?
Tunisia. Other side of the continent.
Oh, I thought it was in Tanzania.
I'm glad that your African geography is as bad as mine.
No, I just straight up forgot where the homestead was. Okay, it does. Yeah, all right. That's actually fairly fantastic. Yeah. Andy Weir was really onto something.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so they've got that. I mean, it is very much the French Guiana in that it would take a long time to ship any of their stuff there. to get launched. So that's a thing. But
When did the
solvable.
Suez Canal open?
Shit, man, I didn't know I was getting tested today. Jeez.
I mean, the British kind of opened that, right? But that was because they had control of Egypt, right?
Opened in 1859. Construction began. Completed 1869.
Oh, geez, it's that old? Okay.
So,
Anyway, well, in this scenario, the Germans captured the Suez Canal and have complete control over it because they have North Africa. And so you just kind of like build your rockets in wherever in Germany, ship it down to the Adriatic, get it on a boat, straight shot to Tanzania, baby.
all right, so they got the space launch sorted out, and now your other stipulation was you don't know that the space race would happen.
The U.S. Soviet space race doesn't happen. Yeah,
right, but a space race probably still would.
Could be,
right?
But
is it
how
right,
racy is it?
Let's run this. Let's run this. If the Nazis won or didn't lose, I guess, right? You're kind of saying they kind of fizzled out. Internal strife happens. Leadership structures fall. Fizzles out.
There's only so much you can conquer, right?
Right.
They would have hit the Roman limit at some point. So
would there have been a what's the nuke situation at that point?
That's a good question. That changes a lot. I didn't think about that.
Because there's always, in every era, there is the superpowers are always vying for technical supremacy on something. So, once the bomb was sorted out, focus goes elsewhere. Space was right there for us. And I don't think there was anything like, I don't think anyone was particularly motivated internally to like, I want to race in space. It was like, I want to race on technical supremacy. And space happened to be the next thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I have more to add then, because the bomb stuff would still be relevant because split the atom in 1939. I think that's when that happened, and then like the original weapons program in the U.S. was designed to counteract the Nazis. Like that was why you didn't end up using it on the Nazis, but that's why you built it, right? But I was trying to think how this scenario would play out. Like, why did in my fake scenario, why did the Nazis win? And to me, it has to be because you guys don't get involved. The United States doesn't get involved, which means that Japan doesn't attack Pearl Harbor, right? That can be your key moment, right? Japan's like, nah, we're not going to poke the bear, right? And then you guys are like, no, we're happy selling you guys. This is a European problem. That's
top 10 dumbest decisions of all time.
Yeah, guaranteed. Yeah,
maybe number one.
So. So the other interesting part of that then is that what happens in the Pacific theater, right, is where Japan also wins, and they have control of China, and so you have like the Chinese space program doesn't happen the way it did,
right? But the Japanese one does.
Right. Which did pretty well considering.
I think that makes NASA JAXA in the new world, where we're like, oh, look at that cute little agency doing those cool missions.
It could be, right? And the Japanese Space Agency, there's a really interesting kind of history because they developed it with a bunch of restrictions because they were also, in trouble after the war. They were they needed to be disciplined, right? Yeah. They had to think about some things for a while, right? And so all of their original rockets and stuff were built without guidance systems because they weren't allowed to have weapons guidance systems. Yeah. So they had this, they worked around some pretty wild constraints.
They were the Joey B of space programs.
Yeah. And if you look at some of the early rockets, they had them all tilted on the launch pad, right? They were launching at 5 degrees or whatever because they had done the math. They're like, well, if it starts at this high, then gravity will slowly turn it and it'll hit orbit. That was how they guided it to orbit instead of having whatever else, which is that's insane to me. I don't know how but that's, but what does Japan Unleashed do for a space program is an interesting question in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, right? So the whole world order of space is disrupted by Japan decides not to bomb Pearl Harbor. But
I like it. That was so different than where I was going with it, but I absolutely love the grandiosity of that, because now I have to consider every other geopolitical situation that ever has existed in the modern world.
Yeah, I mean, like this is not a new idea. Like a lot of people have thought, like, what if because
It's
everything
also
we
like,
know in our entire
aircraft carriers never became the dominant form of modern battle. Like that's also different.
yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting, but
I dig it.
the space side hasn't been explored.
All right, let's do the more recent. Let's do a recent one though. Let's do if you had to do a what if
one?
in the last 10 years.
On the spot.
Like some really near term shit that you wish would have went differently.
Last 10 years.
Yeah.
So 2014 and later. I'll
roll it back. I'll roll it back to 2010 so that you can say, what if the shuttle was never canceled? And that opens as an option, if that's what you want to say. I doubt you would.
No, I'm in a dark place still. So I'll say, what if Russia never invaded Crimea and annexed Crimea? What if Russia was like, no, we're good.
The space station was.
You don't have the whole. Right, but you'd have a little more cooperation. You wouldn't have had the whole.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had the whole engine disaster with Atlas and whatever, right? All that kind of congressional mandate. Vulcan probably wouldn't exist. You would have, I don't know.
Would you have the rabble rousing for commercial crew in the way that we did?
I probably not.
Probably not. I mean, that only got its full budget once that, the early incursions happened.
Yeah.
I like
Maybe
that.
we'd have Orion taking people to the space station today,
That's not a bad one. That's an interesting one. I was gonna go. What if JB got his way and we flew Orion on another Delta IV or a Falcon Heavy or some shit?
Yeah. I like that too. The only problem with that one is like it's really fun, and then they like to think about it, and then they fly the flight, and then after you're like, man, nothing's different.
No, we're right where we are. Yeah, we're right where we are.
We just got this flight, and it's like, okay, well, that's fine.
Cool to see though. Weird looking rocket, but that's pretty much right where we are. Yeah. When did everyone start calling it the Bride and Stack? When did that? I feel like I caught that name on Twitter once or twice.
But that's funny. That's a good joke.
It's really good.
I like the Bride Stack. Yeah.
What if Bigelow didn't go under? Wait, can we have a retrospective on Bigelow Aerospace?
Man, I would love to get. We should, when we get Mike Gold for the UAP thing, we should get Robert Bigelow out here as well, just to spice it up.
It is all right. So it is funny to me how much of a China hawk he was, and roll the clock 10 years forward, and you're like,
yeah, he's right.
Kind of right where we're at. I think the idea though of inflatable, expandable, they were doing expandable. And inflatable, I guess. There's a difference, right? Rigid structure versus...
Sure.
It's like a Zeppelin versus blimp. Like, these are different things. Sure. Where's the structure? I always thought it was more of a... kind of like wet workshops, to be honest. It's always more of a fun academic idea than useful in practice. Because the sheer amount of outfitting that you need to do is... It makes it very quickly like, all right, probably should have just figured out how to get a bigger diameter rocket than worry so much about fairing size.
Yeah. Like, oh, this is hard.
If we were at like the physical limit on what we could launch to space diameter wise, if that existed, right? If there was a like, well, in the way that Mars aero shells are kind of like, well, this is the size that we can land on Mars. If it was a hard limit like that, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. Pack every inch of that fairing. Yeah. But since that era, we have like bigger and bigger fairings and bigger spaceships, and it's kind of not mapped up to where we are in the world. Curious that Sierra Nevada or Sierra Space is still pursuing it, but there's so much outfitting that you have to do that I still don't understand. Like that's multiple expeditions worth of work to go in and build the interior.
Mm-hmm.
That seems
it's like it's a funny like dissonance, because it's like, oh, we have to launch this inflatable thing because launch is so expensive and tiny that we have to maximize it, but we need to launch 5 more times to have people set the whole damn thing up.
But it comes in IKEA packages and we need to then construct it all ourselves in space. That's totally the Swedish space program is just that.
Love
It's
it.
all flat packed. You get it up there,
Jeez.
you sort it out.
Hmm.
Are there any other like points in recent history that felt like a moment of divergence? I mean, the Moon and Mars stuff is interesting to consider, right? If per our pre-show discussion. By the way, we haven't plugged the Discord in like a year, I feel like. So offnom.com/Discord. It's where you support the show and you get to hang out with us all the time, and also the pre-show where we discuss whatever the hell is on our mind for like a half hour before we go live. We were talking about the fact that Mike Pence went out in. Did we decide it was March 2019 or early 2019 and 2019? That sounds
March
wrong when I
2019.
say it. It was 2019.
I know. And then we went to IAC that October, and that's when they were hitting full steam, right?
It was that. Oh my god! I know we decided this like an hour ago, but still feels like. Is it 2019? Are we right? Was it 2018?
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Now you're gonna look.
I'm looking it up.
Because
program. Man, this is a long way.
You would inaugurate. Oh, we're talking about the election again. No, different election. Inauguration was January 2017. It took over a year for Bridenstine to get confirmed, right? We decided that was like April 2018.
Yep. No, you're right. You were right. It was March 2019. Mike Pence announced that NASA's moon landing goal would be accelerated by 4 years with a planned landing in 2024.
Yeah.
So, and then May 14th, 2019, Bridenstine announced a new program would be named Artemis. That's crazy. So that's a moment, maybe. That's a what if moment. Like, what if that track didn't happen, right? Where were we at right before we were still Journey to Marsing? Kind of putzing along on the SLS timeline.
This is the sad one because it's like nothing would be different.
It wouldn't though, right? I mean, we have actual contracts for moonlanders out right now.
Sure, yeah, I guess.
Sure. It's a couple bill out there.
Maybe Gateway would be flying.
We'd be doing Gateway. We probably would, yeah.
Yeah, we'd be all
Gateway's
Gateway.
the one, man. It drives me nuts. We're on the election again. We're on the election. We got
instead of handing out an HLS contract, it would have been a Gateway contract for the Mars. What are the Mars Colonial Transporter?
The transport
thing
vehicle,
that they did.
the
NASA MCT. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. All right, we're on the election. We're gonna lightning round the last couple, Jake. What are these other ones that you wanted to do?
You could recover one space object from the bottom of the ocean. What would it be?
I thought about this one so long, and I didn't really honestly come up with a great answer because I don't know what was still intact down there. But I don't know. The one I kept thinking about was that dragon from CRS 7 with the 7, not 7.
Oh,
7?
The one that blew up.
I had the docking port, right?
The
The docking adapter.
Yeah.
Go get that
the docking adapter.
Yeah. Zuma. Oh my gosh. Zuma is correct. I'm gonna push this button that makes it
Zuma is the correct answer. Yes.
That's not at the bottom of the ocean though. That's not at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
That's stealth satellite.
That's the correct answer if you don't know the truth.
Polyus?
Polyus got you one. Yeah, get the space laser. Let's get it back, man. Let's get it back. No, I actually have a go-to answer for this, which is the Apollo 13 RTG, because it was designed to withstand Earth re-entry. It's the only lander that came back. It's somewhere at the bottom of the ocean, being all nice and warm and cozy. There's probably a whole ecosystem built around
some
it.
Weird fish around that thing. Yeah, hell yeah, I like that one.
That's my answer for that one.
What else? Yeah. Where did Mars 96? Did that burn up all the way? Anything? Mars 96, right? Is the one that
had to
failed.
Have burnt up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah. Get the Planetary Society mission out of there. Recovered.
Dig it out. Yeah. Find the impact points and the lasers that took out that mission. Who was the person with the crazy theory about that? You remember this?
I don't know. I don't think
so
I
you remember
this.
how there was the who was the guy with the labeled release thing?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about now, right?
Yeah. Who's the Viking guy? The life experience, the Bill Clinton. We found life on Mars.
Oh, good Bill Clinton. Who was that guy?
I don't remember his name now. Wow, I'm a bad Mars guy right now.
That's a really bad Mars guy.
Tells you how much I actually thought this was a big news.
You're gonna think about this so long that they'll say in the chat before we do. Gil Levin.
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah.
Okay. So in the later years of in recent years, I feel like he's appeared on other programs talking about how he definitely found life and there's a massive conspiracy to cover it up or something. Is that kind of appropriately?
Yeah, that sounds
oriented?
all right. Yeah, he was like recently publishing still about that experiment.
Okay.
That experiment, like, no, it's real.
Him
It's
and
real.
Avi Loeb.
Yeah.
I think there was a branch of the theories there that Mars 96 also contained one of these experiments. Is that true?
I have not heard this conspiracy branch. This
Somebody, I feel like I've heard this somewhere. That Mars 96 also contained life-confirming capabilities, and it was like shot out of the sky so that it would not fly to Mars. Like that's a theory I've heard floated, I think, on the space show at some point.
No.
So I'm pretty sure I didn't dream this up, but that's a theory I've heard floated.
We gotta get Space Show guy on here. That's gonna be a good one.
I like the I don't know, conspiracy theorists really crack me up sometimes. I don't know. I love r/conspiracy. That's such a good subreddit.
Yeah, we need to add our what if questions, like these little prompts. We need to put one on for later, which is just like, what is a space conspiracy theory that you believe?
That you believe, yeah. Everyone has one conspiracy they believe, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got one.
True. Yeah.
What would yours be?
It's got to be like Dragon XL isn't real.
So good.
I made a shirt for it. I have to believe in it.
Yeah, plug that shirt.
Yeah.
I forget what mine is. I feel like I've had a good answer to this at some point. I don't know. Yeah. Any other lightning round ones? If you want to launch one personal item of yours into space forever, what would it be? Are you discarding something, or are you memorializing an item?
I don't know. I'm not a stuff guy. Like, I don't have like things that mean anything to me. I don't know. That's a weird thing to say, but like, like I have stuff I use a lot, but like I don't like if it, like I use my MacBook every day. But if you like blew it up and got me a different MacBook, I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. Like, I don't care. There's nothing sentimental to me, Like I don't even wear a wedding ring. Like I just like I don't care about that shit, man. Like I just
so good.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question for me, but yeah.
All right. How about is there an aspect of space exploration that you most want a huge leap in technical ability?
This one felt too obvious to me. Like I feel like it has to be propulsion. Does
it? I would say nah.
Really?
Yeah. What are we gonna do with it? This is like the nuclear thermal thing, right? Like, does that really change our ability to pull off these missions in the current environment?
If you had a Merlin engine that's exactly the same as the Merlin engine we have today, except you add a 0 to the IFP, you don't think that would be a big deal?
I think I get stuck on that because
Falcon 9 could launch with a single Merlin and accomplish all the exact same missions.
I'm so not motivated by propulsion, I guess. I don't know. I think I struggle with these theories and like nuclear thermal stuff because I don't see the technical gateway or the gateway to us achieving these epic programs as being a technical one, but being like a funding or programmatic or planning or political or motivation.
The caveat to this question is it specifically said technical, right?
I know. But I would pick power generation every time. Like some of the kilopower stuff that you were talking about.
Figured out. I feel like we have that figured out.
But we never really deployed them at scale or anything. I don't know. What we both should have said is Mars down mass. Yes. That's what we should have said. Mars
but
down
propulsion
mass
would solve that too, though, I think.
Would it?
Yeah.
I mean, we have rocket
engines. Basically, you can say like launches, if you add a 0 to ISP, it effectively launches 1/10 the cost. Because you can, we always we've talked about launch as a gateway, like a gate to
gating element,
our amazing space future for the years, like ever since Falcon came on the scene, it's like, this is it. This is what's going to change it. We're getting out of like, this is launch. Like all we talk about is in rockets. And like at the end of the day, what that actually is like propulsion. Like launch is a higher order function of propulsion. And I think if we had that figured out, like Merlin, talk about Merlin. I'm going off. We got 3 minutes.
Getting off. I love it.
Talk about Merlin. Merlin's a great engine. Like, Merlin and Raptor together are the best engines we've ever had, basically, right? And their big thing though was cost so much as it was performance, right? Like that, if Merlin cost the same as like an Atlas engine, it wouldn't really be that remarkable. It's like, okay, it's a little bit better, but like whatever, it's still RS-25 money, so I don't care, right? But if you could add the 0 to ISP, like I keep saying here, that's effectively like a cost reduction of 10x as well. And that's so like you're talking the same sort of innovation that Merlin made, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I use your former logic of like, we've talked about launch for so long that yes, this would solve it immediately, and I'm like, kind of have, and like here we are, we're
I don't think we've solved it. I'm a launch skeptic though, in that sense. So we've talked about this before, where it's like okay, yeah, there's like more Starlinks going up, but like how much has it changed? It's changed it a bit,
right? And that's where I'm at. I think is that obviously, like if we did propulsion and we did like faster than light travel, then yeah, hell yeah, we're both on for that. But we were going like near term, like in our lifetime jump kind of thing. But
no, my biggest my biggest my biggest point that I've always made that is that if Falcon was as revolutionary as you think it is, then they wouldn't have had to invent Starship, right? Like that's
right.
That's the.
But I think that's where I'm caught is that Starship is a different. It's not just launch. Starship is not just launch. It's also down mass, and that's the game changing aspect of Starship is not the what the launch enables. It does for like astrophysics missions or whatever, but also having down mass, not just to Earth, is an absolute game changer to Starship. If we have a big behemoth launch vehicle, then yes, we could solve the down mass to Mars problem. But I'm not convinced that engine ISP or engine efficiency is the thing though. Is my that's my holdup, I think, with propulsion.
Could be.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of Star Trek recently, and the ease at which they just sort of casually transfer between orbit and the surface in like a little shuttle with like let's just go down. I'm like, oh my god, are you kidding me? Like that's a whole freaking thing we got to do here. Oh, you want to go to orbit? Buckle up, man. We got to set the whole damn thing up.
We have a whole sort of career based on that.
Yeah, just hop in the shuttle and up we go, man. Like, let's do it
one day.
One day.
Well, on that note, Jake, there's a Starship next week, I think.
Yes, hopefully. Yeah. If the Department of Government Efficiency does their job, then it'll be launching on Monday? I think that's the
Monday.
That's the day.
Monday afternoon, so that the deorbit and landing is visible this time.
That's right. It's gonna be fun. So that's probably what we'll talk about next week, right?
It is what we're going to talk about, I think, because Adrian from
whether it happens or not
is coming on. So yes, we're either going to be talking about it or why it didn't happen. And otherwise, I guess we'll talk about European launch companies
and we'll get his take on if the Nazis won, right?
Yeah, I guess we could bring that up. That sounds like ripe show content. We'll see if he comes on next week. So that's what we think is coming on. But after this show, we'll
determine if I'm canceled by whether Adrian shows up next week.
Too good. All right, y'all. Send us your best film. Tweet us instead of shitting on Eric Berger and our mentions. Please tweet at us what film you would make and what your what if scenario is, and if Jake or I is right about the nerdiest argument we've had on the show, whether engine ISP really matters that much. That was as nerdy as I thought we should always be on the show.
And if you don't want to tweet us, you can skeet us, because Blue Sky's a thing apparently this week again. So
that's a thing. What are we on there?
At offnom.com. You can do domain verification there.
Oh yeah, I did that for you, I think. So yeah.
Oh, I did that.
You did that? Okay.
You helped.
All right.
But you have domain control. It was a joint effort, team effort.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right, y'all. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.